Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tammy, Sankofa TravelHer, and welcome to the third episode of Black Race Matter. So my guest today is Ed Boone, and he is the founder of the Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery. And so, Ed, welcome.
Welcome, Tammy. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So we're going to start. Can you tell me a little bit about your background?
Well, I'm a community organizer. I've been doing that for over 30 years. I'm telling my age a little bit, but I've done some community organizing and obesity prevention, violence prevention, block clubs, forming block clubs, just on the ground or local level. Also, just recently, I'm doing some opioid prevention organizing and also some violent prevention with Northwestern Medicine.
Okay, great. So can you give me a brief description or history of Burr Oak Cemetery?
Well, Burr Oak Cemetery was created in 1927 by Earl Dickerson, who was a prominent African-American attorney. And one of the reasons Burr Oak Cemetery was formed was because it was kind of during the Jim Crow era when Blacks weren't allowed to be buried in the Chicagoland area, weren't allowed to be buried where other whites were buried. And there was a lack of places for burials to take place for African Americans. So Burr Oak was formed during the period of the Great Migration. And a lot of African Americans that came from the South to Chicagoland area, when someone finally made that transition, they were buried at Burr Oak.
Okay, and I think, can you hear me? Can you hear
I
me?
hear you.
Oh, okay. So what led you on your quest to reclaim and to preserve Burr Oak Cemetery?
Well, I think it all started in like 1994 after my father passed. During the service, I wasn't pleased with the area where his burial was taking place. And so I brought it to the attention of my family and to the cemetery personnel who were present at the time. And I requested that my father be buried at another location. They told me that it would cost an additional $200. I agreed to it. And at the time, a friend of mine, we went ahead with the service, but a friend of mine, we remained at the cemetery to work out selecting another location. Once we identified a location, I had to go to a cash station because they wouldn't accept a credit card. And just looking back in hindsight, kind of thinking, now I know why they accepted cash only. But we identified a grave and they dug this grave, and we waited, brought my father from the other location where he was, and they buried him there. We said a prayer. And by the time I got back home to the repast, most of the family had, pretty much gone on, but they knew why I remained back to take care of that business. So that's kind of my first interaction with Burr Oak was then. But then as we went along, as I started revisiting his grave, I started noticing the conditions. One day, particularly the flooding, one day I was there and there was a lot of flooding on the road. And this was kind of leading up to a holiday. I think it was Mother's Day or Father's Day. And there was a big truck and it had a large hose attached to it. And it was sucking water from the roadway onto some graves. I took some pictures and complained about it. And the guy said, who are you? But that's when I initially started complaining. So that's kind of my first interactions with Burr Oak was like in 1994.
Okay. And so my next question is the scandal that happened in 2009. It was just crazy. I remember I was at work at the time, and I have some relatives that are buried there. And I remember one of my cousins was like, I'm going there and then, to check it out. And she was let our family know that our ancestors are okay. Were you there on the grounds? And if so, can you tell what happened that day?
Yeah, I remember the day like it was yesterday. I was actually at work downtown, and I got a call from my sister, and she said, they called me Glass. She said, Glass, you need to look at the news. Have you seen the news? And I said, no, what happened? She said, there's a lot of police and sheriff. They're out at the cemetery. They raided the cemetery, and there's a lot of people out there. And I kind of got on in local news and saw there was breaking news, and I saw the traffic backed up, and I immediately left work and headed toward Burr Oak Cemetery. When I got off I-57, which is like over a mile away from the cemetery, as I exited 127th Street, traffic was backed up, heading toward the cemetery. And I said, wow. And I kind of had to take a back road to get actually to the cemetery, park my car blocks away and walk. But as I walked, there was traffic backed up, double parked, people, crowds of people, thousands of people. I made it into the cemetery, and people were just walking all around the cemetery, wandering. And I've always compared it to kind of the slavery ending. And I wasn't there when slavery ended, but I've heard stories. I saw roots, and I saw, images of after slavery, African Americans just wandering the countryside, without a place to go, and not just, kind of didn't know where they were going. And I had that kind of that scene came to my mind, because seeing all these people wandering around, they couldn't find graves. They couldn't get any help from the office. They were trying to find their loved ones' graves, didn't know where to look, and walking out. And I had been working around the cemetery for years. So I was walking around, trying to help people find graves. Those that had information of a graves, I was trying to walk around and find it because of my familiarity with the cemetery. I always knew that my parents at the time, that I thought, figured they were okay. So it was just a matter of me helping everyone else. And I remember at one point going up by the gate and just sitting down on the curb and just looking at the maze of people walking around, old ladies with canes and people just wandering, asking questions and things. And yeah, that went on for a day. And then for a couple of days, the cemetery remained open. People were coming in. And then a couple of days after, the sheriff decided that it was a crime scene, and they shut it down, and people were no longer able to come into the cemetery. But that was my kind of first day when I walked on the scene.
Okay. So what has been some of the challenges with you working with the office at Burr Oak?
I think one of the major problems I'm having with them is communication, and communicating with us in a willingness to seek help and assistance, because there are a lot of issues currently going on with the cemetery. And I reached out to them along with others to try to extend a hand, because there were times when I actually took a sign and conducted one-man protests at the cemetery. I tried to be cordial as of recently, and I've tried to extend an olive branch and work with them. I've even asked about creating a volunteer group of ambassadors that could help people find locations of graves when there's no one in the office, and they haven't been receptive to that. They've made promises about conditions. When I'm out at the cemetery, I see the conditions and I get complaints from people, take those complaints back to the cemetery, and they go unwarranted. It's, they talk a good game, they, talk loud, but do nothing. So those are my issues, them communication and keeping promises, too many broken promises.
Because I know I met you because you had an live interview on the ground. Mm-hmm. And the owner or the manager was there, And then after that, that's when I reached out to you, want to be a part of it, because I frequent Burr Oak several times, and I've been there when it was flooded and, just in horrible conditions. Do you know how many owners there have been since, the scandal in 2009?
Well, after the scandal, during the scandal, it was owned by a company, Perpetual company, a lending company. I think they were based in Texas somewhere. But after the scandal, the cemetery was placed over in the hands of the Catholic Charities. And then there was a trustee, Pamela Holmes, who is a judge. She was actually, and she had actually presided over a representative this cemetery and the case and these settlements and things. So she ended up as being the trustee of the cemetery until the owners purchased it. Willie Carter, along with a number of his sons, including Kevin Carter, who was at the cemetery the day we held the press conference. That was like, I think, the 10th anniversary of the scandal happening when we met.
Okay. So when did you form Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery, and why did you feel it was time to do that?
Well, I had initially, after trying to get some issues resolved during the years following my father's death, tried to work with the cemetery, and I saw I was getting nowhere, and I tried to form a group because I felt that they wouldn't listen to just me. If there was a group of people, that they would probably listen. And I tried to do that for years. I was going out to the cemetery, passing out flyers and leaving a phone number, and actually could never get anything started. But of recently, the last year, I've met a group of core people who seem very interested in forming this group, and they see it in the same light as I do, is that there's we can get things done within numbers. So we formed this group, the Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery, and an advocate group. And the reason we call it the Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery, going back to us being a friend of them. We're not coming as adversaries and trying to penalize them or anything, but we want some action to be taken, and we're coming as friends, and that's why we're known as the Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery. And our initial, the whole getting the cemetery registered as a historical site kind of grew out of us working from around the conditions and the issues that families were facing going out there to the cemetery. And during one of our meetings, one of our members said, "Hey, well, why don't we try to work to get the cemetery registered as a historical site?" I thought, yeah, that's a great idea, because then we would get the cemetery to raise the bar, so to speak, and they would have to do some things because of the state being involved, because of everything that comes with it being a historical site, So maybe they'll listen then.
Okay. Share real quick some photos that you sent me, and you can talk about them. Hold on, let me start beginning. Okay, so here, you want to discuss that, Ed?
Yes. This is the Mamie Till Mobley's grave, and her husband. This is as soon as you come into the cemetery gates. This is, if you look straight, this is the first thing that you'll see. Is their headstone. It's right at the entrance of the cemetery. Her and her husband. And Emmett Till's grave is a little further back in the cemetery.
Okay, have you been there recently? Because I have
Yes.
By. Huh?
Yes, I have.
Did you see all that snow that's caked on top of Mamie Till's grave?
Yes.
Site? That's
yes.
Like total disrespect. I mean,
yeah.
They got all the snow up against the headstone, where if somebody didn't know, wouldn't even find it. I mean, I was like so upset about that.
Right. Can you put that photo up, please? Do you have it?
Oh, I don't have it. I just passed by it. And
I sent you a photo. I sent you the photo because I wanted you to see this photo, and I took a photo with all of the snow in front of the grave here.
Was it in this with the batch of these?
Yes, it was.
Okay, then you know what? Then I did. So we'll just continue on to the next one.
Okay.
There it is, right there.
There it is. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
let me talk. So this was just, I think on Friday, Saturday. This was just recently. Um, and so, oh, it was on Saturday. So when I went there, the thing that struck me about this was that this was not just an act of God where snow fell in front of her grave. This was intentionally, and you can see the plow, the tire marks. This was intentionally put in front of her grave. And so this is what I'm talking about. This is kind of a lack of respect and kind of their inability to recognize how important Mamie Till Mobley and Emmett Till is to the African American community and their significance. You know, the U.S. Congress recently passed the awarded Mamie Till and Emmett Till with the Congressional Gold Medal, which is the highest civilian medal that a person can receive. And if the U.S. Congress and the government can recognize Emmett and Mamie Till and their sacrifices to civil rights movement to the African American, why can't the owners of Burr Oak Cemetery in the state and us in the state of Illinois recognize them in the same manner?
And you know, we just got hit with some more snow, so probably now her headstone is completely covered. And this
Right,
was last
exactly.
Friday, and we got I think we got what, 8-9 inches of snow on
8,
top
9
of
inches.
this photo here.
Right, and that was before this photo was taken. Yes.
I'm just like, there's any way that we could tell them, like, can you please move it? I mean, just common sense and respect and dignity. It's just like they just don't care.
Yeah, you know what? And actually, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and make a visit out there today, tomorrow, just in the next couple of days to see if it's changed with this new snowfall. But I think I will make a phone call to them. I recently sent them a letter notifying them of our intentions to have the cemetery registered as a historical site. I haven't heard back from them because I wanted to get their response to that.
And if they don't do it, and let's bring some shovels out there and move it. You know, I'm just, you know.
You know what? That's a great idea. You know what? Maybe I should circulate this and that'll get some attention.
That would get some
you know
attention because it's just crazy.
I'm gonna try and get some volunteers. I think we're gonna go out there one day and shovel the snow away from her grave and call the media at the same time.
That's crazy. Okay. And then on the photo on the right.
The photo on the right is kind of got my thing here. Let me.
Oh, it's
this is just a of the roadside. I wanted to show this is a U.S. veterans grave, and as you can see, tire marks because cars have had to leave the road and drive on top of graves because they can't get by. They can't. It's not accessible in some areas. They put some gravel down, but it still hasn't resolved the issues.
And another issue.
Okay, the photo on the left is recently. Both of them are recently. This is one of the current issues. I have been going out to the cemetery. This was like in September, October, because people have been complaining. They have been ordering headstones, and the headstones have not been inserted or embedded in the ground. As you can see, in the lower picture, there are the headstones are embedded in the ground. This has always been policy at Burr Oak. When you purchase a headstone, they're purchasing it with the intentions, with the expectation that it will be put into the ground. I've counted, I think my initial visit was like 151 something headstones above ground, waiting to go into the ground. Go ahead.
I mean, on top of the ground.
On top. And then I did a second visit. That number had increased to like 190 something, you know, so there had not been any progress. And then I went back another week and it was like 200 and something. So it's steadily increasing. I asked for an explanation. They said it was because of covert and they couldn't find any, you know, it was a lack of staff, hiring staff, you know, so yeah.
But if you had volunteers, that would, you know.
Yes.
You know.
Yep. Yes. And so that's what we talked about. In order to, some of the other area cemeteries, they contract out the landscaping services so that their staff is not burdened with having to cut the grass and things. Their staff only attends to burying people and putting headstones in the ground. If Burr Oak would take this same approach, then maybe these headstones wouldn't be sitting above ground like this. So I want to talk to them about either changing their policies around headstones, or and at the same time to get these headstones in the ground where they belong.
And then, so you haven't been there since, like, I guess with the snow we've been having for the past couple of weeks, is pretty much they're still on top.
Right, they're pretty much still on top, because the last visit, one explanation they also gave was that the ground's going to be too hard, which I can understand. But at the same time, there's still burials going on, and they're digging 6 feet down. So how come you couldn't dig 6 inches to put a headstone in? So yeah.
You know what I think about? I think about people that are walking and might trip and fall over a headstone that's on top.
That's on top, especially with it covered with snow. So those are some of the hazards and things that are currently there. Another example, some photos of the flooding. This was, I think, taken over over a year ago. There has been some improvement on some of the roads, but this is not a photo that was taken 5-10 years ago. So imagine you going to, pardon me, yeah. Imagine you having to go and visit a grave here, and you're an elderly person, maybe you're a female, and you have on heels, or anyone, I mean, come on, The photo on the left is a photo I went out to my father's headstone, his grave site. My father's grave doesn't get the attention that my mother's does. They know where my mother's grave is, and if they pay close attention to it, or they know they're going to hear from me, they're not fully aware of my father's grave. But these are just some weeds that have grown up around his grave. And then the photo on the right is kind of the process they use for people to identify graves. There are these stakes that are nailed into the ground, buried into the ground, and a lot of them, the writing has deteriorated and it's not visible. So even if people have a grave number, they're still not able to locate their graves. Every time I go out, I find myself spending more time helping someone find a grave.
Because you be out there a lot, so you pretty much know where everything is at, basically.
Yep. And yeah, here's Emmett Till's headstone. I've put in the chat, I put a link to the petition to change.org, which we just started in December. We have, I think, like 580 petitions signed now. But I think about a year from now, we're gonna petition the state of Illinois to designate it as a historical site. Currently, we're just gaining more momentum for the action, getting petitions and getting some elected officials and gaining support for it. But I did put a link in the chat, and I also put in the chat a link to our Facebook page. We have a Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery Facebook page. You can come on and join that also.
Yeah, I had told you, Ed, that I had and I'll let people on the Zoom know that I had reached out to Emmett Till's cousin. Her name is, I call her Miss Ollie, and she was talking about issues with Burr Oak Cemetery because she wants a headstone, not a gravestone. That's a gravestone. She wants a headstone in that area, and they are not working with her. And she told us she couldn't. And I told her about her coming on, being a part of Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery. And she said she just got a lot of stuff going on with that series that came on, Women of the Movement. And so I'm gonna reach out to her again, but also she is having issues with the cemetery as well. So hopefully, if she joins us, she'll, be a part, and, we can help as far as getting a headstone that he definitely deserves.
Right. And if she can just sign that letter of support that we have, that would be sufficient, because then we can use that as documentation that we have her support. And that's the same thing we're trying to do with elected officials, that we can get some type of documentation saying that you support us.
Right, definitely. Okay, so you're working on getting a Burr Oak historic landmark. Are there any projects that you're working on?
The only other projects there is just getting the word out about the petitions and building up the momentum around getting registered as a historical site. Trying to reach out to Congressman Bobby Rush, whose district the cemetery is in. And this, understand, this is not just a Chicago or Illinois issue. This is a nationwide issue. The nation should be appalled at what's happening in our Grove Cemetery and the disrespect that's happening at Emmett and Mamie Till's grave. And that place should be a historical site, and it should be a place where families can come and picnic and just gather, because they do that. I go out and I see families with coolers and lawn chairs sitting at graves, you know, having family reunions and things. So, yeah.
A question from Charlotte. She says, so if the families have paid for this service, can they sue for breach of contract?
Well, the service that they've paid for, it's usually with the funeral home, and the funeral home usually contracts out service. It's like a second party to the cemetery. And it's the same thing with the headstone. The cemetery doesn't make headstones. They order out to like a third party. They contract out for the headstones. And I'm currently waiting on a headstone for my cousin. His grave has went almost 20 years without a headstone. And you know, I'm glad this came up, because I want people to understand that one reason the scandal was able to happen was because they dug up graves that didn't have headstones, that graves that had been buried there for 25, 50 years, where families were not paying attention, were not visiting the cemetery. If you have a loved one buried there, please get a headstone, because then 50 years from now, people will be more inclined not to disturb it, because they feel it's someone there that's visiting, that's cleaning around it. They see that. But that's one reason they were able to be successful in that scandal.
And also, you told me, I don't know, had talked about as far as putting flags on veterans' graves at
Yeah.
Burr. How's that coming along?
Yeah. Yes, I'm kind of waiting. I'm trying to kind of boggle down and trying to get some support and letters out for being a historical site. But going up into May, I'm going to reaching out to some flag companies, and I'm trying to get some flags donated so we can honor all the veterans that are out there. And let's look at it. Most of the veterans out there, they're African American. So I want to get some flags in place at each grave of every African American, every soldier that of a U.S. war that we can identify out there at the cemetery. I asked for some help from the cemetery about identifying those veterans' graves. I haven't gotten it. I reached out to the sheriff's department, who may have that information. I'm waiting for them. But it looks like when the snow has dissolved, I'm going to have to just go out there and do a walkthrough of the cemetery and personally identify those graves. But we're going to make sure that that happens, because it does a number of things. Recognizes our veterans, our heroes, helps solidifies our commitment and puts us on the map as a group, and you know, and trying to get things happening out there.
Okay. And also, do you know if because the last time I was out there, the directory wasn't working. It's like an outdoor directory where you can type in your name and they'll tell you the location. I went there like twice within the last 2 weeks last year, and it was broken. And it was there was some family members that were trying to look for their loved ones, and they came a far away. And when found it was broken, I mean, they was cursing and everything like that, you know. So the last time you were there, is it working?
I'm kind of smiling at this because it's funny. Yeah, no, it's not. That was one of the upgrades or improvements that was supposed to have happened. In addition to them getting a new administrative office. So if you've ever been in there, you see they've got widescreen television, coffee machine, meeting room, tile floors, and everything. It looks real nice on the inside of the building where they are. But outside, no, it's a different thing. Yeah, the directory is not working. It's currently not working. If I'm out there at the cemetery, I can be more helpful trying to locate a grave than the directory that they have there.
Okay. And also, they have a mausoleum like in the back of the cemetery. Have you been in that area?
Yes, that was newly built, and man, I'm kind of suspicious about that whole area, because I remember that there used to be graves over there in that area. And now that whole area, they built a mausoleum and they're digging new graves there. The cemetery was only built to design for 130,000 graves. When the sheriff went out there, they did their analysis and everything. They estimated that there were like 147,000 graves there. You know, so they were like over, 17,000 over capacity. And now there's still burials taking place there. And they built this mausoleum, and I think the cost of it, I looked at the cost, I think it's anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. So it looks like a money thing to me. I don't. I don't.
About what you just said, because that's right. Oh my God, I hope that there's no graves on top of that. That would be just devastating.
Yeah, and I don't think there is. I don't know, because the sheriff department, and the FBI, they went through the whole cemetery. They've used radar and everything, and I guess they've cleared it. Okay. For you. But the sheriff did recommend his final investigation report. He said that the cemetery is over capacity. Now, I don't, him making that statement, I don't know why there's still burials taking place there.
All right, so there's been a lot of negative reviews. When I see the reviews on Burr Oak Cemetery, it just breaks my heart. I mean, I'm not seeing like one positive thing, but what can be done to make a place that has been negative for decades and turn into a beautiful resting place, and also for family members who want to bury their loved ones there?
I think they can start by working with families, by working with groups that are trying to make those improvements, that's trying to make it the place that you just described. There are people and families that are willing to do that. But I think the cemetery has to be willing and receptive to working with those people and putting those things in place, because I think our group has some really great ideas. When we talk about honoring the veterans, and ambassador volunteer group at the cemetery to help identify hazards, I think those are the start of some good things. And we have some other things, ideas too, but they have to listen and be willing to work with us to make those things happen.
Yeah, they also got to take the criticism as well.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So my last question is, how can people join Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery and the online petition?
Well, you can join the group by going to our Facebook group, Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery, and you can join us there on Facebook. You can, and then we can, can transfer emails during some of our meetings. We have monthly meetings talking about the cemetery, some of the strategies that we have put in place to make it a place that you describe. So you can join our meetings, but join us on Facebook, and then go to change.org and put in register Burr Oak or list Burr Oak, the historical site, and it will come up, sign our petition. And I put my email, my phone number in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me by phone or email.
Okay. And so please support Ed, because he's a man on a mission on something positive. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to meet him, and I'm one of the members of Burr Oak Cemetery. Like I said, I have family members at rest there. Does anybody on Zoom have a question or anything before we log off? If you could raise your hand, or if you want to put a message in the box. And it definitely, you'll be coming back, as far as, the progress and the updates of what's going on, because this is very important.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'd just like to thank everyone that's on the call. Thank you for coming on, because you're showing your interest, and if you want to be involved, like I say, I've provided ways to do that. And I'm just appreciative for you coming on and listening. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, please follow Ed and Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery. Please sign the online petition. Follow me on Sankofa TravelHer, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you could please pass the information on, if you know anybody that would like to be a part of it, sign the petition. That would be great, because we really want to try to make this happen. And if there's anything else, and also I will have the video, so if you can please forward the video on to anybody else that would like to learn about the mission of Friends of Burr Oak Cemetery and the history We will definitely appreciate that. But Ed, thank you again.
Thank you.
We will get in contact again so we can provide updates regarding the cemetery.
Great. Thank you so much, Tammy. Bye, everyone.
All right. Everybody take care.
Bye-bye.